Okay, so there's still some people coming in, so I'm just going to go over some of the boring stuff really quick here. My name's Dean Tersini. Hi. I'm a professional computer programmer, and I've been hacking video games for about 20 years now. Can you all hear me? Yeah. Awesome, cool. And so this class is Video Game Hacker University, and the cards that I gave out. So Rom Detectives is a website that I run. It's probably the most pertinent to this talk because it's all about uncovering the mysteries that are hidden in ROMs. And many times you're going to find like the first time anyone has seen a message that the programmer left there like 40 years ago. And it's really fun to find Easter eggs like that. The other website is Video Game Music Preservation Foundation. It's all about preserving video game music, and not just so you can listen to the music, although you can. The website has thousands of songs that you can listen to, but it also has information about the composers, the hardware that they wrote their music on, the software that they used to write their music, and a bunch of other things like that. So, and they're both wiki style. So just like with Wikipedia, any one of you can create an account, go up to it, and add your wisdom to these websites. And they're constantly growing all the time. But the more of you that help out, the faster they'll grow and the more people will reach. So please, if you feel so inclined, create an account and start adding to it.
On the music, can
yes.
you not only add, but can you download and use it in your own projects?
Yes, you sir. No, oh God, I wish, no. Any music that was put onto a game that is where the copyright is still owned, it's technically illegal for me to have it on my website, but my website is completely free, and most of the stuff you can rip yourself, so I'm just providing a simpler service for other people. But yeah, you're not allowed to use it unless it's, yes, yep. So, okay, 1 minute, okay. So, does anyone recognize this Mario? Wow, that was too much at once. Yes, it is. Mario Teaches Typing. Yeah, best Mario game ever, by the way.
I don't know, it's kind of hard to argue if Mario goes missing.
Mario Slot Machine, the Taiwanese bootleg, it's the best. For those of you who didn't get a card, I've got a bunch of them up here. Please come up to me afterward and grab one, or two actually. There's one for each site. But okay, I'm gonna go ahead and get started because I got a lot to cover and I want to try and make sure I get it all. So I'm going to teach you all about hacking video game ROMs, specifically the 8 and 16-bit era, although the skills that you're going to learn here are going to work for pretty much all of them. So you can use these same skills to hack PlayStation, Nintendo 64, Sega Saturn. Even if you suddenly have a PlayStation 5 emulator, first off, give me a copy. Second of all, you can use these skills even on that as well. So I'm going to go right into graphics here, and I'm going to start with the first game that I got for Super Nintendo, SimCity. This is, in my opinion, it's the best port of SimCity, the original anyway. We'll get this started up here, and I'm also going to open a graphic program called Tile Layer Pro. This is a program designed to work with a whole slew of games, and it's based more on the nose dash. It's based more on opening the ROMs themselves, not necessarily a specific game. And you can see here, well, you probably can't see here, so I'll read it to you. It supports NES, Super Nintendo, Game Boy and Game Boy Color, Virtual Boy, Sega Master System, the Genesis, Neo Geo Pocket Color, very important system, and even Game Boy Advance. And it will actually support some that are not listed here, just because it's based on how the data is stored in the ROM, not how let's get you open here, not how, not the specific game. I'm just going to bump it up here in size. Now, as you can see, this is beautiful graphic data. But we're going to scroll down. This is actually a graphic representation of the ROM file itself. But if we scroll down here, we can see here is the game's graphics. Now you'll notice that all the colors are wrong. That's because in all of the retro consoles, the color data is stored separately from the pixel data. And this program doesn't know how to mix the two up. Now it does offer you a feature where you can simply load a prepared palette, which I've done. And you can see now we've got the status bar. Oh no, we've got the status bar info. I'm gonna put a pause on that. Now these colors match up over here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take Dr. Wright's icon here and I'm going to give him a pink afro because I think that's what he would want. Why am I using this? Here we go. That's better. Now this is actually altering the graphics of the ROM file itself. I am changing them directly in the ROM and I'm not doing a very good job, but that's okay. This is just for test. Okay, perfect. Okay. So lovely pink afro. I'm going to come up here. I'm going to say save as, and I'm going to call this SimCity Pink Fro. We're going to save that. And now, get you, no. There we go. Oh, come on, Windows 11. Okay, here we go. Now if we load up Pink Fro, does this have audio, by the way? Can you hear that, or is it just on the computer? That is Soya Oka, one of my favorite Nintendo composers. This game has just, the best music. And I wish I could just play it, but I'm just going to mute it here because it's going to be too distracting. But she is featured in the Video Game Music Preservation Foundation, as well as information about her and what she did to compose the music. But you see here now, we have our pink afro in the game. And yeah, it's... you don't need to applause for something that simple. But that's what you can do with this tool. And it will work. You saw all the different platforms it works. Now, it won't work if the game's graphics are compressed or if they're encrypted. But the vast majority of the games for the 8 and 16-bit era don't use compression or encryption. So that will work just fine, and you'll be able to do that. Now, that's obviously an incredibly simple hack, but you can look here. You can see you've got the full alphabet. You've got the user interface. If we come up here, here's the airplane, the boat. Here are the buildings and the roads and the traffic animation. You can completely reskin the game to be science fiction themed, to have a Western theme, or whatever you want. So that just gives you an idea of what you can do with just that one tool, and that will work on literally tens of thousands of games. Yes?
Does it already know about the palette limits and stuff like that?
You'll have to generate a palette yourself. That's really easy to do from just take a screenshot of your emulator and then pull the graphic out that way. And I'm going to move on. That was just to show you a simple one. This one is, I'll tell you something about myself. I'm a father. 4 years ago, my wife gave birth to our twin daughters. And, that applause goes to my wife. I didn't do much. I just sort of stood there and looked scared. As any good gamer father does, I put a controller in their hands before they could even use it correctly, just so that they could get the feel of it. And they started playing video games incredibly early. And you know, the ones that kids like, Super Mario Brothers, Zelda, Grand Theft Auto, you know, stuff that's appropriate for 4-year-olds. And they've absolutely taken to video games. This is their Halloween costume. You could get that out of there, but yeah, look how cute they are. They get that from me. But one thing I noticed when they were playing these games that I grew up with and I love, it's that all of them have a male protagonist rescuing a damsel in distress. And now I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think it's a perfectly valid motif. But part of why I love these games growing up is because I could see myself as the hero. You know, Link wasn't just Link. I was Link going in there and defeating Ganon. So I decided that I wanted to take one of the games that I love and make it for them. So this is called Super Sisters, not Super Mario Brothers. And you'll see the protagonist is this little girl who, when she gets the mushroom, becomes a princess, and her name is Gabby, not Mario. And so now I'm proud of this hack, but not really that proud because I didn't have to do very much for it. This is something that if you want to hack games, you will be surprised to see how much stuff is already done for you. For example, I am a terrible pixel artist, and I was not looking forward to changing Mario into a woman. But I did a Google search, and somebody already did it. So I brought in their sprites, I put them into the game. I just had to change the color of the dresses to match the dresses that my girls wear. And the title screen here, let me get that back up. I did not have to do much for this. I actually started trying to do it, and then I realized that it's compressed. And I was like, okay, I'll crack the compression. But then I just did a Google search, and somebody created a Super Mario Brothers title screen editor. I was like, sweet, that saves me another step. So really all I had to do was change the color and then change the name from Mario to Gabby and Luigi to Ileana. And I'm going to show you how to do the text editing there, but let me show you, this is when I first showed my daughter her name in the game. And she can't read yet, but she can recognize the letters that make up her name. So she saw it and she's like, oh, Gabby, that's me. And you know, now when I ask them, do you girls want to play video games? They're like, Super Sisters, we want to play Super Sisters. And it warms my cold black heart, you know. Let me get rid of that.
Had the villain in any of these?
No. It's still King Koopa, pre-Bowser. So let's go on to text editing. That's what I was talking about. And so I'm going to show you, this is a really simple one. This is going to be Battletoads Double Dragon. It's a nice beat 'em up for Super Nintendo. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a Hex Editor. Anyone familiar with Hex Editors? Just a couple of, okay, that's fine. So a hex editor is a way of viewing a file on a computer more like how the computer views the data rather than how a human views the data. So if you look at all of this, this is just a bunch of numbers in hexadecimal. And oh, by the way, the program that I'm using is called HXD. It's a free hex editor. And in fact, all of the software that I'm going to be using today is free. This isn't just because I'm super cheap. It's also because I want to make it clear that you can get into video game hacking without having to spend a cent. All of the software, not all of it, a large portion of the software, anything that you'll need, you can find a free version of it. But buy the games. Just to prevent copyright issues, buy the games. You don't want to go to prison again. So this is the binary data, and this is the text equivalent. And you'll notice this is not text, right? This is just a garbled mess. But if we do a search, the game's called Battletoads, so it probably has the word battle in it, right? And there it is. Okay, but this is just a file signature that's credits. Here we go. This is the entire game's dialogue right here. And you can see there are pages of it here. And, you know, Jimmy, you're the finest warriors on earth has to offer, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we can just come right in here and just change it. And in fact, I'll show you an example here. So when we start this game, it says Trade West Presents, okay? So I'm gonna come in here and I'm gonna look for Presents, there we go. And there it is. And I'm gonna change that to MAGFest, exclamation point. We're gonna do File, Save As. And we'll call this Double Dragon MAGFest, go. And we can get rid of you. And we're gonna bring this open. Now when the game starts, Trade West MAGFest. It's really that simple. Well, no, it's really not that simple, not even close. So this, I'll show you an example of what I mean. So I'm gonna do Super Mario Land, which is the first non-Tetris game that you probably played on your Game Boy. And we'll get that started here. So if we look at the status bar here, we've got Mario, World, Time. So let's open up the hex editor again. We're gonna bring in Super Mario Land, the ROM. And I'm just gonna do a search here for time. Doesn't find it. Why not? Well, because I cheated with Battletoads Double Dragon. That game was made by Rare. And Rare got their start, all the developers got their start on computers, not on video game consoles. And in computers, they use a very standard text encoding system called ASCII. And this is the ASCII code. In a way, you've probably not used to looking at it, but these are the hex values, or the number, and this is the text that it gets encoded into. So if you have like a text file and it has like the word time, it doesn't actually store the word time, it stores in hex the number 54, 49, 4D, 45. And because because ASCII is so standard, it was very easy to go into Battletoads Double Dragon and edit the text. But Super Mario Land was written by Nintendo, and Nintendo started on video game consoles which do not have a standard text encoding. They use usually a custom text encoding for every single game. And that makes it incredibly hard to figure out unless you have a good emulator. And Emulicious, the emulator that I'm using here, is a very good one. In my opinion, it is the best for Game Boy Color, Game Gear, and the Sega Master System. Not necessarily the best for accuracy, but the best as far as hacking tools are concerned. And if you want to hack a game, hacking tools are where you're going to be. So take a look at this. I'm going to open up, well, we don't need Memory Editor yet. Let's go to Tile Map Viewer. This obviously is the screen, but this is the future part of the screen that you're going to scroll into. The game actually pre-renders some of the background in memory, but you never get to see it on your Game Boy. But this emulator will help you see that. And you can come down here to the tile viewer. Here are all of the Mario sprites, the enemy sprites, the background tiles. And in fact, I can click on, say, like this coin up here, and it'll highlight this coin down here, showing me where it is in memory. And it'll give its index. So if I click on the T for time, over here, T for time, it clicks over here, and it shows me the index is 1D. That's a hex offset of this alphabet here. And if you create a table, just like I had of that ASCII table, let me bring it open here. I've pre-prepared it. This is the custom text encoding that Super Mario Land uses. These are all of the numeric values and the crossovers. Now, unfortunately, your standard Hex Editor doesn't support custom text encoding, so we're going to get rid of that, but Emulicious does. So let's go into Memory Editor. I'm going to go to the ROM, and I'm going to say File, Load Table File, and I'm going to load up the Super Mario Land one. And now if we do a search for time, there's 1, here's 2. So here is Mario, the little times sign, world time. This is the actual game's ROM, and we can see the text that makes up this title. Now, who here wants to see their name put into Super Mario Land? Anyone? Yes?
Connor.
Connor? Can you spell that for me, Connor?
Conner.
Okay. Unfortunately, your name is too long.
Oh.
I know, but don't worry. We're going to abbreviate. I apologize. Nobody likes to see their name abbreviated, but now we could shift the lives over one character because we've got a little bit of space here. We could push everything over. But that's a program hack. I will go into that a little bit later, but for now I just want to speed things along. So let's get our text open. Okay. No, get back here. I might just get you out of the way. Okay. So we want C is OC. That's helpful. And then N is 7. Oh, you need an O there. 1, 8. I'm just going to do 1 N. My apologies. Say ER or OR? ER. Okay. That's going to be 0E. And then R is 1B. Coner. I'm sorry, coder. All right. So we're going to do File, Save As, Super Mario Land, Coner. My apologies again. And then, if we get this out of the way here, we can open up the game, and we're going to go Super Mario Land Coner. And now your name is in there. Yeah. Yes. A round of applause for Coner. Thank you, Coner. Yes.
And I'm absolutely ignorant on this. My son knows more than I ever will.
Okay.
But when you have things, since you have to use a bit for every little character, instead of saying like 1, 7 equals N, I saw on the other ones like 0, 9 equals 9.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you just do N equals N instead of using 2?
Because the computer doesn't know what an N is. It knows what a number is, but it has no idea what an N is. So we create these tables that say, this is what the number is, and this is what text it represents. And so not every game, but a large portion of games do this, and some of them do them in a more complicated way. So for example, here's the Final Fantasy table. And you'll notice this is not a 1-to-1. This is a 1-to-2. The programmer who did this, he put 2 values for each byte. And that way, you actually effectively double the amount of text that you can fit into the game. But the downside is you now need to decode it, and you have to store this entire thing in the ROM itself, which can slow things down. But for an RPG, speed isn't usually an issue, but you may not be able to do this in like an action game or something. And other games use different styles. Again, this particular method here of using an emulator to figure out the encoding will work for tens of thousands of games, the 8 and 16, and even the 32 and 64-bit era. Yes?
Where did you get those ASCII tables?
I just handmade. You can ASCII. You can just do a Google search for, and you'll have it. This particular one, the encoding one. Yes. So in Emulicious, when I had the game open, it was just based simply on the on this right here. So this you can see the index here is 0. Here is 1 and 2 and 3, and then as you get down to G, it's 10 in hex. H is 11 in hex, I, etc. Now you'll notice there's no J. There's also no X. What if we wanted to put like Jennifer or Zenifer in there? We wouldn't be able to do that. However, this is where now if you ever translate a ROM, this is something that will come up because, let's say you want to translate it into French and you need the C with the little cedilla at the bottom, or Icelandic, which has a character called the thorn. What do you do in that case? Well, you can find a graphic tile that's unused. So this is the background tile, and that's used all throughout the game. If I bring open the tile map viewer, I can click on just this empty area, and it'll show it's using this particular tile. Well, this tile is also blank, and so is this one, and so is this one. So they have 3 additional blank tiles in memory that probably aren't used. You won't know for sure until you play around with the game a little bit. But if you could go into the Tile Layer Pro, the graphic program I was using earlier, and just throw a J in here. And then when you go to change this, if you wanted to change it to Jennifer, you would map it to this letter or this address instead of this one. This is very common in 8 and 16-bit era games. They very frequently they'll write the game script, figure out which letters they don't use, and then reuse them for graphics just because, they're very limited on space. So that was a really common thing to do back then. So I'm going to move on now to map hacking. I'll let you do questions afterward. I got a lot to go through, and I want to try and get as much done as possible. So if you're lucky, you're going to find that you just do a Google search, and you're going to find something like this. This is Lunar Magic. It is a map editor for Super Mario World. It's full featured. You can do all sorts of things with it. It may not be as impressive now that Mario Maker exists, but the maps that you edit here, you can put into an actual Super Nintendo and play them. So you can do something like just put the Bonsai Bill right there, give Mario a rude awakening when he comes in. He'll appreciate that. But if you don't find a map editor, that means you're going to have to figure out how the map is stored yourself. And it's usually not that hard. It's time consuming, but not necessarily hard. I'm going to show you an example on a game that I spent way too much of my youth playing, Dragon Warrior. If you're familiar with it, you know that this game has insane amounts of grinding. But this is a standard 8-bit RPG. It's made up of a 2D grid map. Each map has a specific discrete cell in it. It's very simple laid out. Now, there's different ways that you can go about figuring out how the map is set up. One simple way is just like with the text, figuring out text encoding, which may seem a bit odd since text and graphics are totally different, except on video game consoles, they're the exact same thing. Notice, these are the background tiles of the game, and the letters and numbers are all up here as well, because they're just all graphic tiles. Now, again, the colors are wrong because these systems didn't store palette data with their graphic or their pixel data. Now, you could do something like, so this water tile is composed of 4 tiles. There's this one right here, there's this one right here, and then the bottom portion is just the same 2 reversed. So you could do a Google or a search in a Hex Editor for these indices, which is F6, A8, and then the next line would be A8, F6. You would find the tile definition. From that, you would find all the other ones because they're right next to it in the ROM. And then you can use an index to figure out the order of those tiles and then do a search for, say, something like stone, grass, brick, water. And I'm not going to go into that because it doesn't work for this game. But it does work for a lot of games. I spent about I don't know, about an hour or so doing that, figuring it all out, and then realizing that the map is actually stored differently in this game. So I'm going to show you how I did find out how this map is laid out. And it's kind of odd. It involves just looking at the ROM, but in a particular way. So I'm going to open up the ROM as though I'm looking for graphics. So you'll see here, it's just garbage right now. But if we go all the way to the bottom, here's all the game's graphics. And you can come in here and edit those just like before. And one thing this does help, though, is when you know where the graphics are, you can come down here. It starts at offset FF00 on the ROM. And you know everything after that is graphics, so it can't be the map information. You could also do what I was showing you earlier, figure out where the game's text is. And you know that can't be map data either. So then you start looking for stuff that helps you eliminate all of the stuff that's not maps, and then after that you can start digging around for what is maps. And I'll show you how to do that. So take a look at this section here. This is noise. This is static. This is if you took an old CRT television and tuned it to a channel that you doesn't have a station. Some of you are old enough to remember that. But this has structure. It's not patterned so much, but there's definitely structure. It's in vertical columns, and there's variation. So like this, whenever you see something like this in a game's ROM, when you're viewing it graphically, this is a good indication that what you're viewing is data and not code. This is code, or it's either code or compressed or encrypted data. That looks like noise when you view it graphically. But when you see something like this is a very good indication that it's data. And what data is it? Well, we know it's not graphics because the graphics are down here. It could be the music. That's data. It could be the enemy layout. It could be the screen layout, stuff like that. So how can we figure out precisely what it is? Well, let's try looking at it in a Hex Editor. So I'm going to bring this guy open. And if we go to this area, just around the same area right here. So this is right at the top of the ROM. And notice, yeah, you can see it. There's these sort of diagonal lines here. You guys see those? Okay, that is a good indication that what you're looking at is a 2D grid that is viewed with the wrong number of columns. I'll show you what I mean here. Let me go back to Tile Layer Pro, and I'm going to drop down to the bottom. And so here we go. See how these are all in nice, pretty columns? Watch what happens when I increase the width of this by just one additional column. They all go diagonal. Just because now I'm viewing it with a different number of columns. So if I come over here, now this Hex Editor allows us to just customize how wide we want this. So I can make this wider and smaller and it'll grow. That's the wrong way because now it's worse diagonal. There we go. Boom. Perfectly straight line now. This is a good indication that we figured out how wide this data actually is. And we can see up here, it's 15 bytes wide. Now, if we were to take this and copy it and then paste it into a text editor, this I've pre-pasted. It's called map maybe, because I don't know for sure if it's a map yet, but you'll see there is structure here. Notice we've got this long line of 4s. We've got this big rectangle of 6s, this long column of 0s. So there's definitely something going on here, but it's really hard to tell what it is when it's just a bunch of numbers and letters. So this is where having a basic understanding of computer programming really helps in hacking. This program is called Free Basic. Is anyone familiar with Quick Basic or GW Basic or Commodore Basic or any of those? Okay, so Free Basic is a modern compiler for BASIC. It allows you to compile directly to Windows 64-bit. It will run without runtimes. It's a really nice program, and it's totally free, just like everything else that I'm showing you here. So this is a program I put together. You can see it's not very big, and most of it is just me defining colors roughly at random. This right here is just reading. What this block does is it takes that text file, and instead of drawing letters and numbers, it's going to draw colored boxes. Let's see if I can get that running here. Okay. Now it looks like something. This is clearly a map. In fact, it's this map. You can see here is the little ring of water, a little barrier in there. This is the grass and the trees. Now the colors are all wrong because I just picked them at random, but that's definitely the map. And now after I found that portion, I spent maybe about another half hour just looking at the ROM, figuring everything out, and I created this program. What this one does, rather than me copying and pasting from a hex editor to a text file and all that nonsense, this reads directly from the ROM itself, and the colors will be correct this time. And this part right here is reading if you study the map data, you'll see that there's the first map, the second map, and they're all just serialized in the ROM, but at the top of it is some header information that tells you how big the maps are and where they are offset in the ROM. And then this portion here is just like before, except it's a little bit more complicated because I need to take the binary portion and do it. But when I run this one, now we've got the right colors. And this is, like I said, this is run directly from the ROM. And in fact, I wrote it so you can cycle through all of the maps in the game. These are all the towns and everything else. So now once you have that, once you now know exactly how the maps are laid out, then you can go in and you can actually hack them. So I won't make you watch me spend 15 minutes in a hex editor changing letters around. I'm just going to jump right ahead to one that I've prepared. This time, when we go down the stairs, we don't go into the normal castle. We go into the MAGFest castle. So, thank you. And entirely from beginning to end, I had no idea how the map was laid out in this game when I started. I spent maybe about 3 hours until I got to this point. Now, obviously, for the very first time that you're going to do it, you're not going to get that quick, or you won't get to this point in 3 hours, but you will get there. And you will probably get there a lot faster than you think. So that's just showing you what you can do with it. And is there anything else in here? Now, if you want some more information, like I said, I'm going to try and get through as quickly as possible, and then I'll have some time for Q&A afterward. But let's move on. So with that, with being able to edit the graphics and the text and the maps, you can totally reskin a game. You can take your favorite game and make it completely unique, except anyone who is already really familiar with that game, they're going to look at it and they're going to be like, it's cool, I like it, but this is the same game that I played as a kid. You've just changed the maps and the artwork. They're going to know that it's still the same game. How do you change it to the point where it's completely unrecognizable? That's when you need to do a program hack. That's when you actually get in and hack the game's code itself. And you can still do that. It's actually easier than you might think. So I'm going to start with Sonic the Hedgehog, the first Genesis game probably most of us played. I'm just going to get in here. Now, Sonic is awesome music, first of all. Also available on the Video Game Music Preservation Foundation. But it's your standard, 80s... was it 80s? 89? 90, 91. Oh, thank you. It's your standard late 80s platformer where you start with 3 lives. If you get hit, you die, you lose a life. And if you run out of lives, you get a game over. Pretty straightforward. And also you can get extra lives by picking up the 1-ups throughout the game. And because the lives are moving up and down, that means that they're in the Genesis's RAM. It needs to be able to edit them frequently. And what you can do with a good emulator, this one, it's called BizHawk, by the way. It is a multi-platform emulator. It supports like 25 different platforms. It's fantastic. But it also has a lot of really nice hacking tools like RAM search, for example. This is a tool that lets you look through the RAM of the Genesis, and there are 65,536 addressable spaces in the memory. That's just way too many to look through just by hand. But what we're going to do is we're going to make it a lot faster by saying, okay, we've got 3 lives. Well, I want to find a value that is equal to the specific value of 3. Once I turn on my numlock. 3, there we go. And okay, that dropped it down to, wait a second, okay, yeah, I'm good here. Okay, so now we have 358 or 56 addresses still. Still a lot to have to look through. So whenever you want to narrow that down, you just change the value. And the easiest way to change the value with lives is just kill yourself. That Motobug was awfully proud of himself. Good job, buddy. Okay, so now we have 2 lives. So I can come in here and I can set this to 2, and I can do my search. And we have a couple more left. I'm going to do it one more time here. He's getting proud of himself now. He's like, yeah, I killed Sonic in the very beginning of Green Hill Zone. No big deal. Anyway, we're going to do this. Okay, so we've got 3 left here. But these are changing. And your lives aren't changing right now. So we know that these cannot be it. So I'm going to remove that, and I'm going to remove that, and we're left with only one. Now, if this is lives, if we did things right, if we die one more time, we're going to get a game over. But if we right-click in here and we say poke address, poke is just a programmer term for change. And now this is expecting a hex value. So I'm going to put in 100, but in hex, 100 is 64. I'm going to do a poke. And now you'll notice nothing changed down here. That doesn't mean that we have the wrong value. But games of this era don't update portions of the screen unless they need to. And the game code is not expecting lives to just change while Sonic is just tapping his foot there. So let's go ahead and kill ourselves and force the game to update the lives. And now, yeah, some of you saw it. Now we have 99 lives. I put in 100, we just died, we're down to 99. But 99 lives is enough for even a bad Sonic player to beat the game, but we don't want 99, we want infinite lives. So I'm gonna right click on here and I'm gonna say freeze address. Now, I've just told the emulator, anytime the game tries to change this value, don't allow it, just keep it what it is. So I died, great, yeah. That Motobug, he's not doing much now. Now, still 99. And now, that's cool and all, but you can do that for every game, for every value. You use the RAM search to find it, and when you find it, you can freeze it. So I could set myself to a bajillion rings, I could put my score infinite, I could set time to keep it at 0. Other things you could do for this game, but so that's a good start. But this is sloppy. You know, if I want to give somebody my hacked ROM, I don't want them to say, okay, you have to use BizHawk, you have to go to RAM search, you know, do this sort of stuff, get it to this value, freeze it, then you've got my hack. That's way too much effort. We want to make this go directly to the RAM itself, or to the ROM itself. So I'm going to switch games again. By the way, I'm switching games so frequently, not because I have undiagnosed ADHD, although I probably do, but it's because I want to show you that these skills that you're learning, they work for everything. They work for all sorts of different emulators, for all sorts of different platforms, for all sorts of different games. It's not just RPGs or platformers, they work for everything. So let's go ahead and just load this up. Good old Airman stage. Now, I already know where lives are, so I'm not going to force you to watch me do the RAM search again. I'm going to go to the Hex Editor. It's at address A8 right here. And you can see it's at 3 right now. If we go to next, okay, it's showing 2, but it's 3. That's because in Mega Man, lives are used starting at 0 rather than 1, so it always looks like -1. So if we come in here and we just change this to 64, boom, we've got 99 lives. Well, actually 100 because +1. But again, and I could click on here and say freeze, just like in the other emulator, and then I'd have infinite lives. But that's, like I said, that's the sloppy way of doing it. What we want to do is we want to change the game's code itself, that when it tries to remove a life or decrement a life, we just say, no, you're not doing that anymore. The game's code itself. So to do that, we're going to right click on here and we're going to say add right breakpoint. For those of you who are familiar with programming, you already know what a breakpoint is. For those of you who aren't, a breakpoint is you're basically telling the computer when a particular criteria occurs, halt the game's code and let me look at what's going on in the machine. So, and that's going to bring open the debugger. Now, this is intimidating. I understand. There's a lot of numbers and letters and colors and checkboxes and buttons. And this is, though, the most important tool for hacking ROMs. This gives you the most control over it. I'll do questions right at the end, though. Sorry. So you'll see here the breakpoint is already set, 00A8. And what it's going to do is it's going to say, all right, halt the game's code when the lives change. And again, the easiest way to change lives, kill yourself. Okay, here we go. Bam, the game's code halted. The debugger comes open. And we see this is the address in the Nintendo's memory. This is the instruction in hex. This is the instruction in a more readable format. You'll see here, DEC is a machine code instruction for decrement or reduce by 1. This $A8 is the address A8. And in fact, I already went in here. You can add, this is a nice feature of the emulator. You can name the addresses so that they show up in the debugger with the name. So it's actually telling me you are decrementing address A8, which is the player's lives. That was something I added. And you can do that for all of the RAM addresses. It really makes looking at the debugger a lot easier because you're no longer looking at just a bunch of letters and numbers. You're looking at variables with useful names. So we need to be able to change this into something that's not going to decrease our lives. Now, what are our options? We see all these different codes down here. These are the ones that you have access to. This is the Rom Detectives website, at least a saved offline version of it. But this is something that you get information from. These are all of the instructions that the Nintendo CPU can process. There's about 50 of them. And if you are familiar with high-level languages, that should scare the hell out of you. Because something like C# has, hundreds of libraries with thousands and thousands of instructions. The Nintendo has 50. Now, what that does is, because it's a reduced instruction set CPU, it can do things very quickly, at least, for 1983. But it makes programming very hard. You'll notice there's no if in here. There's no for loop. There's no do loop. There's not even division. So you have to figure out how to do all of that using just these 50 instructions. Well, you don't, actually. The programmers who made the games do. We're just doing minor hacks to it right now. So one thing we could do is we could use this one, increment. Instead of decrement, instead of decreasing the lives, you increment them every time they die. Now, when you die, you gain lives. That's kind of cool, but it's a little messy. That's not what we really want. One other thing we could do is we could use no-op. This is, you tell the Nintendo CPU, just don't do anything for this instruction. Just sit there for a little bit. But if you did that, you would not only have to do it for the decrement, you would also have to do it for the address here. Otherwise, it would see this $A8 and think, oh, that's an instruction. I need to try and process that. And that will probably cause a bug. And that's one thing we don't want to do. We don't want to have to change both of these, because the easier your hack is, the more likely it is that it won't introduce more bugs. So can we do this with only 1 byte of difference? And the answer is yes. We can use load. Load, or in this case LDA, load into the accumulator. Load is an instruction that says, take an address from memory and just bring it into the CPU's memory, and that's it. Now, normally what you'll do is you'll load something from memory, you'll use a store, or you'll do something to it, perhaps add or subtract, and then you'll store it back into memory. But what we're going to tell the CPU to do is load lives into memory, and then just forget about it. Don't do anything. Don't decrease, don't change, just leave it the way it is. So to do that, I'm going to go up to the cheats, and I've already got it in here. You'll notice there's this little code here. This is a Game Genie code. This actually works on a real Game Genie. You can pull out your little golden Game Genie, stick in your Mega Man 2 cartridge, and this code is going to work and give you infinite lives. And you'll see here, it is based on C1B6. If we go to our debugger, the address is C1B6. The value is A5. A5 is the increment, the load. Let me find it here. There we go. Load. Oh no, where'd you go? 0 page. There you go. So this is the actual byte that the CPU understands. This is the word that humans are meant to understand. This is the addressing. I won't get into that right now. So we're going to turn that on, and it takes the existing value, which is C6, which is the, let me turn that off for a second. I'll come back, which is decrement. And we're going to say change C6 to A5, which is increment now, or load. Now it says load. Okay, great. So now when we continue to run, we just died. We should have lost a life, but we still have our 99 lives. And we did that simply by changing the game's program itself. Simply by doing that. No big deal. And you could come in here. So like this block of code right here, this portion handles the game over sequence, or at least prepares it. And it's based on this BNE, which is branch not empty. It's basically when you say decrement lives is what it should have read, then branch if not empty, which is saying if it's not 0, go down here. This says restart the level, or at least it jumps to the portion that says restart the level. This says handle game over. So we could have actually changed this around and said, yeah, you can decrement the lives all you want, but just when you go to check if the lives are empty, don't do that. Just always jump right to here, and then always restart the level. And then you'll also never run out of lives, although your lives will continue to decrease, which might cause other problems. So that's one thing that you can do. And okay, I've got plenty of time left. So let's let's show you some other things that we can do with this. I'm going to load up. So this, you've got Mega Man here, and he's shooting, and that's great and all. But let's bring open our Hex Editor. Now, because the bullets are going across the screen, the Nintendo's CPU needs to, or the memory needs to know where they exist. They're in RAM somewhere, and you can use the RAM search to find them. I'm going to jump ahead because I want to get this done quicker. And you can see it's right here in memory. You notice it starts out at a low value, it counts up very high until it reaches FA, which is the edge of the screen, this side over here, and then it just stops. And then because it's left out of memory, it's left behind as an FA value just because the cleanup is more CPU cycles, and the programmers don't want to waste time with CPU cycles. So if we put a breakpoint on here, we'll do an add right breakpoint, we bring open our debugger. Now if I shoot, halts the code. I'm going to skip this block, and then I'm going to come over here and we're going to read some more machine code. Load 406 or 460 offset X, which is in this case it's 4, which is basically saying load this address. Add to it from address 600 offset X, which is 604, which is right here. So add 4 to it. Then store it back to its original address. So every time it calls this subroutine, it's just saying add 4 to it, add 4 to it, add 4 to it, and that's what's causing it to move across the screen. We're going to add 4, then 4, then 4. Now that 4, that's in RAM too, which means that it is also something that we can figure out where it's being loaded from. So I'm going to say add a right breakpoint to this. We're going to run this one more time. I'm going to shoot again. It halts the code right here. Load from D497, store into 600 offset X, so 604. So this address is where in the game's ROM, it's loading that number 4. So if we go to that, I know this is pretty complicated, I apologize, but this is, when you do this, you start getting so much more control over the game itself. So here is the address. Let's go ahead and make a cheat for that. And we're going to say address U, compare is currently 4, and we want to increase it. Let's double it to 8. So we're going to say fast bullets. This is something that you won't find in a Game Genie, at least in a Game Genie book. Well, not yet. You will see it after this show, I'm sure. And then let's get back to the debugger, and we're going to do a run. Now when we shoot, oops, I got to turn that debug. Now the bullets are going faster. But we can do better than that. I don't need you anymore. Let's go to the cheats. Let's double it again. Now this is hex, so the doubling of 8 is 10, which is 16. And we're going to do an update. Now they're really going fast. Yeah. Now Rockman's got a machine gun for an arm. And that's cool. But let's do it a different way. Let's, instead of going faster, let's go slower. I'm going to do it at a quarter of the speed. Okay, it's not good when you can outrun your bullets. That's a problem. He pointed out you can't hurt yourself with your own bullets, and that's something that you probably never would have known. I mean, it's an unimportant fact. You know, you're not going to put that in an encyclopedia anywhere, but it's something kind of cool. And that's part of what Rom Detectives. Again, if you haven't gotten a card, come up to me right after this talk and grab one. That's part of what the site's all about. It's uncovering these strange mysteries that nobody ever knew about at the time, but now we're just now seeing them because we have emulators that can get in there and hack. So another thing we can do, like the game has universal gravity, so you can change the gravity at will. Because it's universal gravity, it means it affects everything. So the enemies now shoot their stuff up a lot higher. But it also has, I want to say, like it has just gravity just for Mega Man himself, actually. I don't have internet on my computer here, but my phone still works. The Rom Detectives website has the mapping of the RAM and the ROM and text tables and everything for hundreds of games. And it's growing every day. And if you guys want to help add to that, please do. My email address is on this card. Get in touch with me, and I'll help you hack your ROM or hack your favorite games. We'll change them together. But let's say here, what can we do here? So 3C, address 3C in RAM. Do 3C. That is just Mega Man's gravity. So if we change that to 10, get rid of that and add. Whoa. Okay, he might not come down. I think I put the value too high there. Oh, there he is. Okay. Anyway, that shows you what you could do just by hacking into the ROM and playing around with the debugger and stuff. So anyway, now let me just finish up real quick here, and then I'll do Q&A. Oh, actually, let me show you just real quick here. This is when you take the time to really get into a game and really hack it, you can get something like this. So this is Rockman L. This is a full replacement hack. All new robot bosses, all new levels, all new weapons. Just this is what you can do if you have too much free time. This is just an insane hack. You can climb up on the fence in the background, just like in Super Mario World. It has an Aurora Borealis palette shifted up in the sky. They pulled in the code from a later Mega Man to have the waterfalls. Oh, wrong button. And they actually push you around just like they did before. They gave themselves lunar gravity. So that's the kind of thing that you can put together and just, for fun, make yourself a new game. So I guess the real question then is, what do you want your hack to look like? And I can help you do that. Do you want to translate a game? I can't help you translate, but I can help you do the code changes to translate. Here is Bonk's adventure for the TurboGrafx 16 in Dutch. If you have any Dutch friends that have never played the game, you can help them out. Do you want to add a new character? Like Bowsette added into Super Mario World? This is actually a fantastic idea if you want to give somebody a gift for like their birthday or something. Figure out what their favorite game is and hack it so that they're the hero. Or maybe the villain. Maybe they prefer that. I don't know. Do you want to fix bugs in an old game to make it more accessible? This is a hack that I did. It's called Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest Redacted. It was actually featured on the Angry Video Game Nerd, which was really an honor to me. But I completely rewrote the game's dialogue, the entire script of the game. Because for those of you who know, the game is notoriously bad with its dialogue. It gives you bad hints. Half of the stuff that it says is lies. I went through and I made everything an actual hint. So you actually can play the game without needing a Nintendo Power. And hacking games is going to make you better at what you love. So if you're an artist, hacking games is going to make you a better artist. Take a look at these red columns here as they sort of shift, and you can see them translucent through the water, and then a little transparency, and they're shaded to blue. The Nintendo doesn't support transparencies. The artist who did this had to do that truly with pixel art. And it's kind of, there are still a few people that do it, but it's otherwise a lost art, and hacking video games is going to make you better at that. If you're a writer, hacking games is going to make you a better writer. This scene still kills me. But you can pull out the entire game's script and then look at it and realize, wow, there's not much here. And not that it's not good, but it's so short. How did they create a script that actually evokes emotion when you've only got 2,000 words? But if you hack games, you're going to have to figure that out, and it will make you a better writer. If you're a programmer, oh boy, you better believe hacking video games is going to make you a better programmer. This is a reverse engineered. They took the compiled Metroid 2 video game code and put it back to assembler. Now it's still, for most of you, this is still completely Greek and you won't be able to read it, but you can see there's variable names here now. There's line addresses. The routines actually have names that make sense. It's commented, and you're going to learn so much more. As when I started programming, I knew that bit arithmetic and bit shifting and add and XOR and OR and all of those things existed, but I didn't really use them because I didn't really know how they worked. And after hacking games for a long time, it's really shown me, okay, yes, now I understand how they work, and it allows me to optimize my code a lot better. And the most important thing is just hacking's fun. Playing around with your favorite game and you know, screwing it up and you know, giving yourself infinite lives. Or here's an interesting thing. What happens when you have a star and you get to Bowser in Super Mario Brothers? Anyone know? It's not possible in the game, but you can hack it that way. Anyway. So these are my websites, romdetectives.com, videogamemusicpreservation.com. Please visit them, create an account, help me add and edit them. Yeah, and that's it. Thank you all so much. Thank you. So, all right, I think I've got 9 minutes for Q&A. So yes.
Recommended tools for hacking cartridges that you already have.
Okay, yes. So if you want to not go to prison, there is a legal way. Now, I should preface this by saying I am not a lawyer. If you need a lawyer, talk to a lawyer, because I am not he or she. So these are actual tools that you can use. This is hardware where you can take a cartridge, put it in here, connect it to your computer, and it will dump the ROM from your cartridge to your computer and this is a form of a legal backup. Again, I am not an attorney. Don't quote me on that. This is another piece of hardware that you can buy. This is another one. It supports all of these different cartridges. So yeah. Yes.
Go back to that Game Genie card. Is that just how the Game Genie works?
Yes, yes it is.
If I had a book of codes, could I just, like, without using them,
Absolutely.
Game Genie code and reverse engineer what it does?
Yes, you certainly could. So yeah, let me bring that back open here. Mega Man 2. Thank you so much. Yeah, so like if you come in here, this is the code. Now you see this one right here, this is not a Game Genie code because this only affects RAM, not ROM. So you won't be able to use this one, but there is a way to convert that into something that will affect the ROM. And for that, you'll use the debugger to try and figure it out. Don't worry about that. But yeah, so like this fast bullets code, which you won't find in your Game Genie manual, you can use this code and it will make your bullets go faster. And you can find thousands and thousands of others. Again, I don't have internet access here, I don't think. Let's try. No, I don't. Okay. But the website, do you have one of these cards?
Okay.
Awesome. Yes. This has thousands of cheats across hundreds of games that you can put into your emulator and start playing. You can, I have it to where you can just download the entire collection, and it's set up for different types of emulators. So basically you download the file, you unzip it into the cheats folder of your emulator, and now you have thousands of cheats. So yeah, but come up here and get it afterward. Yes?
2 questions real quick. What is that program you're using there?
This is FCEUX. It's a really old and good Nintendo emulator. Actually, I think the best one for hacking is Mezen, but I'm very familiar with FCEUX, so I continue to use it.
The other question was, I never really understood. ROMs are just compiled?
The ROM is actually, they take the data from the chip of the cartridge itself and just make a copy of it.
Oh.
So it is literally all of the data from the game cartridge itself.
So it's not even compiled, it's just the raw data.
Well, it is compiled. What they do, so the way the game development would have worked in the 8 and 16-bit era is they would develop the program in assembly, and then they would compile it to machine code for the CPU and video card of the device. And then they would take that compiled data and put it onto a chip, and that's what's inside of the cartridge.
Gotcha. I saw you messing with BASIC.
Yeah.
You said most of it was built in assembly. I mean, they could use anything they wanted, but...
Oh yeah, I was just using BASIC because it's very easy to prototype in BASIC. You can very quickly, that graphic program where it just takes letters and numbers and puts them into boxes, that took me like 10 minutes to write. So yeah, but if you want to use JavaScript or C# using GDI plus or whatever. So yeah. Yes, in the back there.
You going back to like the I forgot what you call it, the Hex text.
Yes.
Script. Because you showed that some of them made more sense, and then there was a Final Fantasy one. What's
Yes.
the game that you've looked at that has the most bonkers?
Sure.
Ridiculous, text text?
Yeah, so there's one that I spent probably like 2 or 3 hours trying to figure out how the game's text was encoded. It's a game called Ultima Exodus. It's not that great, but it's an RPG that I had as a kid, so I wanted to figure out how to hack it. And it uses what's called 6-bit encoding. So normal text encoding uses 8-bit encoding. So this number 6 right here, it takes 1 byte to represent that, or 8 bits. And the C, same thing, 1 byte, 6 bits. In Ultima 6, it uses 6 bits for each character, which cannot be represented in most normal software because most software is set up for 8 bits to a byte. The benefit of that is because it only takes 6 bits, you can fit 5 characters of text in 4 bytes. It's not a massive compression, but it's some. The downside to that is because it's 6 bits, there are only 64 possible options. So your alphabet, including letters, numbers, punctuation, and all of that, can be no larger than 64 different individual pieces. So, yes, back there.
How complicated would be the process of like taking your hack and making it into like a patch file the way that they're normally distributed?
It is shockingly easy. Here's how it works. Let me see. I think I've got one on this computer. There is a program called Lunar Ips, I believe. Let me see here. Games, tools. Yeah, Lunar Ips. What this program does is it takes... Oh, I should point out, the question he's asking about making a ROM patch. If you hack a ROM, you can't just give it to your friend. That's illegal because the ROM's data is copyrighted. Now, if you've bought the game, you own the contents of the ROM so that you can legally have that. And you are legally allowed to change it, but you can't give the ROM that you've changed to somebody else. But what you can do is give them all of the changes that you've made. And to do that, you use what's called an IPS patch. There's a couple different styles. IPS patch is the easiest. So I'm going to say, okay, let's do, I'm going to apply a patch. And I'm going to go back to that the Game Boy hack that I made with Koner. Sorry, Koner. Let me go to desktop. Okay, so text. What it's going to do is first it's going to ask me for the original ROM. I think
you need to create.
Oh, let me.
You hit apply instead of create.
Whoops, my bad. Thank you. You guys know what I'm talking about. Okay, so let's go desktop, ROMs, and I have a mouse. Why do I keep doing this? So we'll go to Super Mario Land. So I'm going to choose the original ROM first, and then I'm going to choose the one that I've hacked, and then I'm going to save out the difference, and there it is, and I'm done. And the difference, so the ROM itself is, it always shocks me how small video game ROMs are. Like, it's 64K. Come on. Like, you can open up a Word document, type hello world, and save it out, and it's larger than that. But so the patch is only 18 bytes. It is the address in the ROM that I've changed, and then the bytes that I changed, where I changed Mario to Koner. And that's all it takes. This is legal to give out because it's the thing that I did. I changed it, and I'm giving other people the ability to look at it and change it. So that's how you don't go to prison. Yes. Yes.
What's the fine line between like I'm gonna hack a game I love versus I want to make so many changes I might as well just make a new one? You know what I mean?
Sure, yeah. Well, have you ever tried making like even an 8-bit game from scratch?
No.
Okay. It is insanely hard. It doesn't seem like it would be because, you know, we're used to AAA 3D amazing games. And then we look at something like The Legend of Zelda and it's like, well, that should take a couple hours, right? But you have to realize that The Legend of Zelda was made by like a team of like 10 people over the course of like 8 months. And they all knew what they were doing already. So to just start from scratch and try and recreate The Legend of Zelda, it will literally take you years if you're doing it by yourself. A friend of mine, he did a recreation of it in the Oculus, full 3D, and he was like, "Well, I want to do this. It shouldn't be that hard." He's been working on it for 6 years now. He's done for the most part. You can do everything in it, but yeah, it took him about 6 years. So even if you want to do a lot of changes, hack. It's so much faster. Yeah. And yes.
You use a lot of editing software. Are they available on your website?
Yes, a lot of them you'll find on Rom Detectives. Otherwise, there's a really, I hate to say better, but it's better, called romhacking.net. And it has a massive archive of like hundreds and hundreds, not just of the tools that you can use to hack. It has the map editors, the text editors, the graphic editors, etc. But it also has all like thousands of hacks themselves, all pre-made. The difference between that and my website is mine is based simply more on mapping out the RAM, mapping out the ROM, making it so that future hackers don't have to start from scratch. So like for Mega Man 2, for example, I have a large portion of the RAM already mapped out. So if you want to know where the enemy's hit points are stored, it'll tell you. If you want to know where the Robot Master's weapon power is stored, it's all there. If you want to know if you've beaten, what stage you're in or how high XY coordinates of Mega Man on the screen, all of it's there. And for hundreds of other games as well. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, back there.
So cracking the games open like this, have you ever uncovered some sort of like crazy Easter egg that you never expect anyone to see?
Yes. And it's not that infrequent either. There's a really good one. It's a pinball game, not Nintendo pinball, but it's another pinball game. But what's that?
Space pinball?
No. It's for Nintendo. And it's the programmer just bitching about how much he hates writing on the Nintendo. Because Nintendo, in order to save money, they took the 6502 CPU design, which is the one that their CPU is based on, and they had the company Ricoh actually like take a knife to the chip die and cut out a portion of it that was copyrighted. Just so they wouldn't have to pay royalties to the company that made that portion. But it was the decimal coding section of it. So the CPU, the 6502, you can switch between addition in hex or decimal, which is kind of nice because if you just want to do decimal addition, it does it for you. But the Nintendo is like, yeah, but then we'd have to pay an extra like 25 cents per unit, and we don't want that, so let's get rid of it. So the programmer is just bitching like, why would you idiots take this out? This is what it's made for. I can't believe you did that. It's hilarious. Another one. How many people here have played Super C, the sequel to Contra? Okay. Did you know that you can, if you have the fireball weapon, you can hold down the fire button for like 2 seconds and then release it, and it will shoot out a large fireball? Oh, yes, you did. Okay, good. I had no idea. I played that game hundreds and hundreds of times. I've beaten it several times. I had no idea you could do that. And I found it not because it's in the manual, because it's not in the manual, and not because it's in Nintendo Power, because it's not in any of the data Nintendo Power. I found it because I took the RAM address, which decides which weapon you have. And I started cycling through it. You know, it starts out with your regular weapon. The next one's your machine gun, then the laser, and so forth. And then after that, you're out of them. And I'm like, well, what happens if I go higher? So I put it onto the next one, gigantic fireball. I'm like, what? That's so cool. I had no idea that was even a thing. Did the programmers like write this and then they took it out because it's too powerful? Because it is too powerful. Like it does serious damage. You can kill some of the bosses in like one hit with it. But no, it turns out I spent a little bit more time looking at it in the game's ROM. And if you hold down the fire button and just leave it held down for like 2 seconds and then release, it shoots that giant fireball. It's not in the manual. Nobody, as far as I know, nobody, at least in my friends or any magazine I had ever read, knew anything about it. And for me, I found this for the first time in like 2009 or something. I'm like, that's so cool. Actually, if you do the next one over, so the fireball explodes into these smaller fireballs, your gun will just be those small fireballs, and it'll go like this far on the screen. So that's actually an example of a great hack that you can do, like make a hard mode of Super C, because it's so easy, right? Where the only gun that you get is the tiny little fireball. It'll be like Dan from Street Fighter 3. It's just like, that's a cool thing. Make an easy mode, make a hard mode, just ideas for hacks. And like I said, my email address is on this card. Get in touch with me. Tell me your favorite game. Well, let's hack it together. Any other questions? Good. Yeah. Yes.
I know that 62502 is the assembly language for the NES. What is the language for the SNES?
It is a 16-bit of the 6502.
Oh.
So it has almost all of the same opcodes, the same instructions as the 6502. The 6502, by the way, is also used in the Commodore 64, the Apple II, the Atari 2600, a whole host of other devices. The other really popular 8-bit chip was the Z80, and that was used in like the ColecoVision, the Game Gear, the Game Boy Color, all that stuff. And then when you get into the 16 bits, there's only a couple other chips that are used throughout all of them. But yeah, learning the opcodes is actually the easy part. Trying to figure out how to handle like the audio chips and the graphic chips, that's a lot harder because those are much more esoteric and they're pretty much unique per console. Yeah. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, my question is, if you have a ROM hack and you want to like distribute it as discreetly as possible, like what would be the best website to go?
You want it discreet? Like nobody wants to know except for you and your adult friends?
Basically, yeah. Like
Okay.
Like let's say I have a fun ROM hack for my friends and I don't want to get sued because of because they don't project.
Then email it to them. And that's yeah. But if you want it to be online at least, don't put your name on it. Upload it to a website using a throwaway account. And only upload the Ips patch. Did you see that portion that I was doing earlier?
Yes, I did.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, do that because now they can't say, oh, you're using our copyrighted material. So the way the other person will apply the patch is they will have legally obtained the ROM themselves, and they will just simply use this same tool to apply that ROM hack to it. Yes, legally, and then it will just work. But it has to be the same version. A lot of the 8 and 16-bit games, they would release multiple versions. Like the Legend of Zelda has 2 different, or maybe even 3 different ROMs. So you need to know that the one that you made your ROM hack on is the one that they have to apply it to. Any other questions?